welcome to Satsang.
Hello, Vishrant. Can you please talk about the topic for today? Change the way you think and life will become easier.
Now, I was very fortunate to learn that we create our own reality with the way we think. When I was a teenager, I had some good teachers. And I got to see that negative thinking creates an environment of misery, particularly victim-orientated thinking, where you see yourself as a victim of other people, situations, and even yourself. That kind of thinking just creates misery and changes absolutely nothing. And so I was very fortunate to realize that we were responsible for our happiness and we were responsible for our misery. How we think about the world, how we think about other people, and how we think about ourselves affects our quality of life. And so when I was 19, I was lucky enough to get information, and I started removing different things from my life. I started removing things like worry. I removed victim-orientated thinking. I removed anything that I found took me into resistance, because I realized that resistance to life, whatever it is suffering. And I wasn't interested in creating my own suffering. It just so happens that in removing these obstacles, removing these things that were creating suffering, like worry, procrastination, victim-orientated thinking, negative thinking, my life improved incredibly in that I wasn't creating suffering for myself in that manner. And as I got older, I noticed that everybody around me to some degree was. And I just saw that they were caught in the stories of their own mind rather than the reality of what was actually happening. In reality, most of the time, there's nothing happening. But people think there's something happening because they're living in their heads thinking about things that aren't so savory. They're creating a reality for themselves that is miserable. And there's just no need. We do not have to do that. We can deprogram our minds. It's not even reprogramming, it's deprogramming. Just stop being negative. Stop entertaining victim-orientated thinking. Stop worrying. Don't entertain it until the new default pattern that comes along is to not procrastinate, to not worry, to not be victim-orientated, to not think negative thoughts constantly. Because these are things that we picked up as kids and we did them often enough until they became default patterns. And they're worth changing because they keep you locked in lower consciousness. People who are negative thinkers are having a negative dream. That's lower consciousness. There's no higher consciousness in that. People who are very victim-orientated are creating suffering for themselves. They are lost and locked in lower consciousness, particularly if it gets to the level of anger, which you have to be a victim to be angry. You have to be blaming something or someone. You can't get much lower in consciousness than to actually be caught in the dream of anger. Have a look and see. Look for yourself and see. When I first heard all of this when I was 19, I thought it was gold because I was an angry young man. I'd had a pretty hard life and I was resentful, I was bitter, and I was angry. And to change all that was absolutely brilliant. To actually sit back and be able to not get caught in resisting life, to not get caught in contracting against life, To not get caught in creating my own suffering was probably one of the best things I ever did for myself. And so it's up to you. You create your reality with the way you think. Nobody does it to you. Look, things go wrong for everybody. People let you down, things fail, people die, you get sick, all sorts of things are going to happen. Now, how you look at them and how you think about them is going to depend on whether you suffer or not. It's in your hands. Any questions? Any statements? Any challenges to this teaching today?
The first question is as follows. Is it easy to change the way that you think?
No, it's not easy. If it was easy, everyone, in the moment, we can use discipline to change something. But for something to actually be a default pattern where we don't have to use any form of discipline to do it, that takes quite a lot of practice. Psychologists reckon to develop our original default patterns of thinking took about 2 years. I've heard people say that it can happen in less time. That wasn't my experience, though. To change from being a victim-orientated person who worried and procrastinated and got angry to not being like that took me about 2 years of practice.
A question from a viewer reads, when you say we change our reality by the way we think, do you mean changing the filter or bending reality itself?
No, reality is reality. You know, the sun comes up, the sun goes down, that's real. What we think about it's not so real, though. We can imagine all sorts of things are happening that aren't happening. We can change those imaginings. We can't change reality, really. We can't make the sun not go down. We can't make it come up. It's going to happen. But we can change the way we think about it. We can change our minds. We have that ability. We have the ability to change how we think about life. And that will come back to us as how we feel about life, our quality of life. People who are negative, who are victim-orientated, have miserable lives because they're creating misery. They're telling themselves sad stories. And so that's where they live, because awareness goes to that. And we always live where our awareness is at. People who aren't negative, who aren't running victim-orientated stories, have a much higher quality of life because they're not creating misery. Their awareness is not on it because it's not there. You create your lifestyle by the way you think.
Next, we have a question from Chris.
Hello, Chris.
I have a question about peeling the onion. And are there any other techniques? I know openness, you said, is the best way to go. Are there any other techniques, or is that just the best technique to peel the onion of stuff that we can't see?
By peeling the onion, you're talking about going through the different layers of pain body that you may have?
Yes.
Okay. So it seems that we have different layers of pain body, and we get through one layer and then everything's good. We think it's all over. And then another layer appears that seems to come from a deeper level. And the only way I know for that to occur at a relatively quick speed is for your willingness to feel what's there. Any form of rejection of it, any form of repression of it, saves it for another day. And so what's actually required from you is to be warmly okay with whatever appears. And because you're warmly okay with it, it will appear. If you're not okay with it, you'll find another way to escape it.
I'm thinking, like I recently discovered that I had closed down. I wasn't really aware that I had closed. And I just practiced openness, and all of a sudden it hit me that I was closing off to other people, even though I could meditate, and I was not, I didn't see, I wasn't communicating well, and that I had closed myself to others. Is that it? Does that make any sense?
I understand what you're saying, but basically it's a statement without a question.
Is openness the way to go to unlock what's hidden from me? I wasn't even aware I was closed.
I see openness as the way to enlightenment. I see it as the way of the heart. I see it as the way to heal the wounds of the heart. And I also understand that it's the one thing that the ego can't use to hide in. It cannot use openness to escape from its stuff, because in openness, everything appears. And so it's a pretty good methodology. I played a game called Zero. At zero, I was absolutely relaxed. Anything above zero, I was in tension somewhere, stress somewhere, closed somewhere, in resistance somewhere. And the game was, once I noticed that I was above zero, how fast could I get back to zero? And could I remove anything that actually took me above zero? In other words, belief systems or whatever else. And it was a game I played for years because I wanted to be open, because I knew that openness supports higher consciousness. I knew that it supported the way of the heart. And I knew that I could be a lot happier if I was open. You can't really be happy if you're closed. You're in resistance to life.
Okay, that's good.
So openness counts for everything as far as I'm concerned, Chris.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Just one more point. It is difficult. I'm never ever going to tell someone it's easy. It is difficult, but what else you got to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
The next question is from Alicia.
Hello, Alicia. I can't hear you, Alicia, so either you're muted or you've gone off air. Okay. Tosh?
Yep. The next question has been written by Diane. Is what we see an illusion, a dream that feels real?
No, what we see is real. What we think about what we see is not real. It's an opinion. But what we see is real. So you can look at the sunset and the sun's going down on the horizon. The sight of that is real. The moment you start thinking about it and saying, oh, isn't that beautiful? You're now dreaming. Come back to reality.
The next question has been written by Maria. Can you talk about the witness? Thank you.
So I had to cast my mind back a long way to work out when I started developing the witness of the mind. And it seems to me it probably happened when I was in boarding school. I went to a private boarding school for a lot of years, and I was one of the kids that was a troublemaker. And so I was put in isolation for 2 years in the tower, which was totally empty. There was absolutely nothing up there. It was just a huge space with my bed in it. And I had to climb up maybe 60 meters of stairs to get to it on a spiral staircase. And I used to start watching what I was thinking. I used to start being aware that my mind was up to different types of thoughts. And because I wasn't being interfered by anybody, in that I was there alone in the dark, I watched my mind, and I just watched and watched and watched it to see what it was doing. And so I developed this witness of the mind, rather than getting caught in what I was thinking, getting caught in the dream. I was detached from the mind and just watching it. And that carried on through my teenage years and into my 20s. And then I came across Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh when I was 28, and he was talking about the witness the mind, witnessing the mind. He was talking about watch the mind and find yourself as that witness, as that pure awareness that's there. Well, at that stage, that didn't happen for me, but I was witnessing my mind, and it was interesting to have my guru, my master, tell me that that was the way, because I was already practicing it to some degree. Because when you witness the mind instead of getting caught in it, you start seeing all the rubbish that it produces. You start seeing its lies. You start seeing how it defends itself, how it runs away from things. You get a much clearer sight of what you are up to. And because you can see things that are detrimental to yourself, you can actually start changing those things. Witnessing the mind is brilliant, because in hindsight, after you've witnessed the mind, you can start to say, well, I don't want to be involved in that type of thinking, because that type of thinking that you may have been having is detrimental to your happiness, or detrimental to your spiritual growth, or detrimental to someone else. So you start changing it. You bring in a discipline to change. So witnessing the mind is really the beginning, in a lot of ways, of higher consciousness, because you are becoming more aware of your own mind and how it ticks, how it works, what it does right, what it does wrong. But it's up to you. Most people just get caught dreaming, getting caught in their analysing, the fairy tales they're telling in their heads. They don't actually have a witness. They get caught in psychotherapy of their own mind. Developing the silent witness, you just watch the mind. You watch it like you're watching someone else's mind, and the animal will show itself to you. You don't do this with judgment, and you don't change anything at the time. You just witness it. If you're going to do any change, you do that later. I hope that helps.
The next question is from Neil.
Hello, Neil.
Hello, Vishrant. So I constantly worry about the uncertainty of the future. I have no idea what's going to happen to me the next moment. So I constantly think about it. So is there a way to switch my thinking from this state of worrying?
Yeah. Good question. So for worry to survive, it has to be supported by you. Your mind has to be supporting it. Now, meditation, or the practice of mindfulness, is the practice of bringing awareness to what is real and abandoning that is not real. Everything is real except what you think. And so in worry, which is fear-based, bringing your awareness to what is real will take you out of the worry. It'll take you away from the fear. Fear is not real. And so you can use your breath, you can use anything that's real to put your awareness on. And by putting your awareness on it, you're actually pulling yourself out of the dream, the fear dream, the worry, and back into reality. And this will take, if you have a practice of being anxious, a practice of procrastinating, a practice of worrying, it's going to take a while to change. But if you keep coming back to reality, you'll start developing a default pattern of being with what is real instead of what is not. But this is hard. I'm not going to tell you it's easy. But the choice is this. If you don't change it, you will worry till you die. If you decide to change it, it will be hard. But if you practice putting your awareness on what is real, which is meditation or mindfulness, it will change. It'll take a while, but it will change. It's up to you and what you want to do. Do you have the motivation to actually start being more mindful of what is real, pulling away from the worry? Up to you.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Vishrant.
Very common problem, Neil. It's not just Juma, it's just about the whole world. People spend their life in their heads worrying about what's going to happen later, rather than being with what is real.
Mm-hmm. Right. And
no amount of worry ever changed anything.
And I feel like sometimes this sense of worrying sometimes it pushes me to take action, because when it comes to my job, if I feel like I'm constantly doing the same thing, that fear pushes me to switch to another job. So is there anything good about fear?
Your mind is justifying worry. I wouldn't do that if I was you. There's no good justification for worrying. Worrying is a form of suffering that is not required.
Okay.
It doesn't change anything.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Vishrant.
The next question has been written by a viewer. What about cultural suppression and being subjected to violence while you could not defend yourself? If that is reality, how to accept that? Do you keep looking at it until you're okay with it?
Well, as I stated earlier, I was in boarding school for a lot of years. Talk about suppression and brutality and violence. I think I was beaten just about every day at school because I was one of those kids who was always in trouble. So I do understand. And that is when I think I started learning acceptance, because I could have walked out of there. I could have just ran away from school, but I didn't. Life is the way life is. If you make it okay, you can deal with anything. If you resist, you create suffering and probably don't change anything. We are all stuck in a body with a mind that is like a prison, the bars of which are made of fear. So once you start applying acceptance to how life is, to how you are, your life becomes easier. If all you do is fight and resist, you're running true to your primal programming, which is going to keep you in suffering until you die. Someone who actually learns acceptance can get free. Someone who learns acceptance can become enlightened. Someone who learns acceptance can perceive love quite clearly because they're not contracted and in resistance. They're open. And so it's up to you. I'm sure you can justify your closures. I'm sure you can justify your resistance. But what do you reckon the price is?
The next question is from Abay.
Hello, Abay.
Hi, Vishrant. Vishrant, sometimes when I become alert about the thought running in my mind, generally if it is a negative thought, it just stops immediately. Is that watching mind or manipulating it?
Well, you're watching the mind stop a thought. You're probably involved in the stopping. Witnessing the mind, you're not doing anything. That's all you're doing. It's like you're watching an animal in the field. You're just watching it to see what it does. You're not judging it. You're not doing anything to it. You're not stopping it. You're not starting it. You're just watching it. That's witnessing. Okay, Bay.
Yes. Thank you, Vishrant.
Thank you, Bay.
The next question has been written by Alicia. How can we get control over our mind and heart? I give people more than they deserve always. And when they stop loving me after a while, I can't do the same. And it really destroys me and I can't be happy anymore.
This whole idea of control is the problem. Control is really lower consciousness. It's about surviving. If you're not experiencing love, it's probably because you're too closed. You're too defended. You've got too much resistance happening. Probably because you're trying to control everything. How about let go, let go, let go? How about practicing that? How about practicing that and acceptance of life instead of resistance to life, which is simply you trying to survive? You want to go up in consciousness levels, you practice let go. You practice surrender. You don't practice resistance. That just keeps you locked in lower consciousness. And it's up to you because you're responsible for what you practice. Let go, let go, let go. Ooh, reminded me, the Christians have a good way of saying it. Let go and let God.
The next question is from Shrikant.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, how does one measure one's progress on the spiritual path? Just to give a little bit of context, I've been on this for probably 6-7 months. Get to some sort of like a non-dual awakening, right? And but it's definitely much more peaceful as compared to when I started. I mean, there's a level of stillness here, and I'm not perturbed by things that I used to disturb me earlier. I'm much more calm, and a lot of events seem to be happening kind of on autopilot these days. Like it looks like whether I am doing it or whether they're getting done, something is getting done, and also they're getting done on time in much more efficient manner. But a lot of things, office, household work, everything. But it's still not, awakening is still not happened. So that is frustrating me a lot. What is the final push that's required to, bring it home,
Okay. So in the Advaita Vedanta methodology, they use self-inquiry, which can show people their true nature. They can have a satori or a glimpse of who they truly are, the non-dual nature.
Mm-hmm.
But, and there is a but in this, if the mind hasn't been prepared to support what is found, it is highly unlikely that it'll stay, because awareness will go back to the mind when it starts contracting and resisting life.
Mm-hmm.
So how I used to measure consciousness growth was things that would normally tick me off, stop ticking me off. Things that would normally annoy me or aggravate me or take me into resistance, they wouldn't annoy me or aggravate me or take me into resistance anymore, because I'd undone them.
Right.
There was nothing left. And I used self-inquiry. But even though I used self-inquiry extensively, it wasn't really until I was in the presence of my awakened teachers for a period of time that awakening started to catch. In other words, I was being supported by the Buddha field of my awakened teachers.
So there was some sort of transmission. Maybe.
Absolutely. Someone who's awake is always transmitting. And in that transmission, it was easier for me to find myself as just the Buddha nature, or the pure awareness, the non-dual nature, than if I was by myself, because their energy field supported awakening.
Does the transmission can happen over the video chat, or it can happen, you have to be close to the person, something like that?
Happening right now, my friend.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is happening right now. And I don't know of anything better that, if you're really interested in enlightenment, than hanging out with people who are awake, because it's a gift. Basically, it's Satsang, and it's a gift because it allows you to let go, let go, let go in mind, and find yourself more and more of this expanded reality that's pure awareness that we are.
Right.
So I highly recommend hanging out with people who are awake. If you can't find them physically, I've always been able to feel the transmission through the internet.
Great. Thank you, Vishrant. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Nice talking to you.
The next question has been written by a viewer. Do you have no thought, no emotion, and no energy?
Most of the time I have no thought. I rarely have any emotion whatsoever. As far as energy is concerned, I don't know what you mean by no energy. I'm wondering if you're asking if I feel tired or exhausted. The answer to that is no. I chose a long time ago to be with the people rather than sit in my room and stare into space, which is very, very nice. And so I'm out and about with my people all the time. As far as energy is concerned, there's so much energy. It just flows through. It's everywhere.
The next question has been written by Marcus. Hey Vishrant, yesterday I asked the question, how can I trust? And then I almost started to cry. Was asking the question helpful or a form of an escape from the pain of not trusting?
Well, you've got to understand what trust is. Most people understand trust in that I will trust you if certain circumstances are met, certain conditions are met. But that's not trust, that's a business deal. I trust that everything that happens is meant to happen, otherwise it wouldn't be happening. And so I don't see good, bad, I just see what is. And it's happening, so it's meant to be happening, otherwise it wouldn't be happening. This is a fatalistic view of the world. And this is a beautiful view because it keeps you out of suffering. The life is just the way life is. It's neither good nor bad. It's neither right nor wrong. It's just what is. And this attitude removes most suffering, removes most resistance. There's no reason why we really have to suffer here. We will have pain. We'll probably have physical pain. We'll probably have emotional pain, but we don't have to resist it. We don't have to go into contraction. We don't have to create suffering. That's a choice.
Next, we have a question from Kalimba.
Hello, Kalimba.
Hi, Vishrant. The concept of acceptance is something I really relate to. But yesterday I caused a little bit of a problem with Heather and I. She's been having a lot of issues with Ben, who's was taken back to hospital again, and she was getting really angry, as he was, with the way the staff were keeping in there but doing nothing. And I was pushing a little bit for her to go to Satsang and say, look, keep doing, do Satsang, and it'll change the energy for you somewhat. And for some reason, she was too busy. She was too that, she was too the other. So I got a little bit critical and judgmental with her yesterday, and she got really upset about it. And it's like my justification was sort of like the old saying, it's better to tell someone the truth, even if it makes them cry, rather than lie to them to make them smile. Can you comment on what's going on for me here?
Yeah, I'd have a look at how uncomfortable you felt when you heard her suffering and her son's suffering, and you couldn't do anything about it, and she wasn't willing to take your advice. How did that make you feel? What did that do inside of you?
I allowed it to frustrate me, and I allowed it to let me make judgments about her reasoning.
Yeah.
Sort of, yeah. And I don't know for either way for sure whether what she was saying was fair income or whether she was making excuses. But I can't know that. But the judgments kept coming up, and it was like, yeah, she got quite upset with me yesterday.
You weren't in acceptance of how she was.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you were uncomfortable, and on some level you were trying to make yourself comfortable as well by getting her to move to an action that may have been productive.
Yeah, that's true. And watching Satsang last night, initially when you asked those people to leave, I sort of contracted a little bit. And then it dawned on me that in a way that's kind of like a Zen stick. You can't be smiling and lovely and helpful all the time. If sometimes people need, hey, do not do this. But it's the sort of loving, understanding way that you do it, which I sometimes fail to do. And it sort of sounds like I'm being a bossy boots.
Yeah. You got to look at where you're coming from and why you're doing what you're doing. If you're trying to make yourself comfortable, it's corrupted in some way because you're not really doing it for the other anymore.
Yeah, but in this issue with Heather, I'm really certain that I'm trying to do it for her, not for me. Because with all the issues she's been having, I'm positive within me. If she could do Satsang regularly, she would be more relaxed.
I agree, but you probably need to have a closer look at you, because you're the one that's reacting and you're the one who's not accepting. And so you have to have a look at, well, why is that so? What is it? What's in it for you? What's the payoff in it for you? And you're going to have to get really honest with yourself. I think you have a lot of trouble feeling helpless.
Yep, I think you're right. So I shall start to try and feel happy with being helpless.
Well, it's accepting the situation. It's a lousy situation, but it's in acceptance of the situation, which she wasn't doing, which Ben wasn't doing. But when you didn't do it either, it kind of like didn't help much because you tried to move her to an action that she didn't want to do.
Yeah, true. So I was trying to get her to have acceptance by not being accepting myself, which is, yeah.
You got to lead by example, Kalimba.
Thanks, Vishrant.
Always good to talk to you, Kalimba.
And you, mate.
The next question has been written by a viewer. I see I'm often analysing, but I think it's useful. How did you come to the conclusion that the best thing was to stop it?
When I realized that analyzing was living in my head, and living in my head is not real, it's existing in a movie, on a movie set, I decided that I preferred real life. I preferred to be in real life, squeezing the juice out of it rather than living in a third-grade movie theatre inside my own mind, analysing the hell out of everything, which, like probably everyone else, I'd been programmed to do because I went to school for 12 years and that's what we did at school. We analysed everything. And so I had developed those default patterns, but I started to realise that those default patterns were detrimental to my happiness because analysing, procrastinating, working things out, problem solving in itself is a form of suffering. It doesn't bring you any joy. Joy comes from being real. What's in front of you now? Not what you think about it, but what's in front of you now. Get real.
The next question has been written by Layla. I feel so unpeaceful. I can't give up on people when they give up on me, and I give them more than they give me, and it really destroys me inside, and I can't be happy now. Can you please comment?
Layla, you're just simply not accepting life as it is. You're in resistance. You think you know that it should be different than how it is, and you're hurting yourself with that understanding. Accept that life is the way it is. Accept that these people are the way they are. Accept that the situation is the way it is, and you will find peace. As long as you resist it, as long as you don't accept, you are the one that's taking you to hell, nobody else. You're creating your reality. Try acceptance. It's best. If the acceptance is total, it's a full stop. The story's over.
The next question is from Interpol.
Hello, Interpol. Or Jyoti.
Yes. You must get really tired of repeating yourself in different ways, but here's the question.
You're coming across mumbled. If you could talk into the microphone, that would be better.
Oh, 1 second. Is that better?
That is better, yes.
Okay, sorry about that. So I have been working through some past traumas, and I believe I've reached, there's many traumas or many past things, but I believe that in one story that I tell myself, I've come to acceptance. And I guess I wouldn't really know that it's total unless it ever triggers me again. So the question is this: the past is a dream, the future is a dream. So focus on the now, focus on the present. And if a trigger happens, then that would indicate some sort of a contraction. And then I'd know that I didn't actually reach full acceptance.
Was that a question?
Yes, the question is, then that's the only way you'd know that you hadn't reached full acceptance.
Yeah, look, if something that triggered you triggers you again, you actually haven't undone whatever belief system supports it because it's triggered you again. And so say a friend lies to you and, oh gosh, you get all hurt and you get all upset and you go into contraction and resistance because you have a belief system that they shouldn't lie to you. Now you decide, I'll undo that belief system. And so you undo the belief system by going, well, in the big picture of the universe, how do I really know that that person wasn't supposed to lie to me? And all of a sudden you don't know because you can't come up with a positive answer because you don't know. Now you're injecting doubt into that particular belief system. If you inject enough doubt into the belief system, it loses its power. Now, when someone lies to you, you may get touched, but it's how you react to that touch as well. Are you victim orientated? Are you supporting victim orientation? Are you supporting blame, or are you not? So for me, I not only undid belief systems, I also refused to be a victim of anything or anybody, because I could see that being a victim of anything is a voluntary act. You have to volunteer for it, because bad stuff happens. But to be a victim, you have to volunteer to be a victim. And so there needs to be a mental understanding of what victim orientation is, and how that we actually have a choice in victim orientation. We might not have a choice. Someone might lie to us, but we have a choice to be a victim of it or not. If we choose to be a victim, we choose to go into blame, well, we're choosing to suffer. It's that simple.
Right, right. But if that situation were to happen, so I was very victim orientated around a particular past event, and very angry. That was my expression, and I believe I've undone it to a vast extent. And so it did come up. Somebody asked me a question about it recently, about something, and I answered. I said, yeah, this is what happened, and acknowledged that it's injustice. What had happened was an injustice, but it really didn't bother me, except to say, yeah, it's an injustice. And is acknowledging something as an injustice, there's nothing wrong in that, right?
As long as you don't believe that things should be fair, it's not a problem. You see, a lot of us were brought up with the idea that things should be fair, which is totally out of touch with the reality of the world we live in. Things aren't fair.
Yeah, super unfair if that was my belief system. But I think fatalistic view is the way. It's the way. It just was.
It's just what is. Neither good nor bad, nor right nor wrong, just what is. And then deal with it.
Thank you.
Or don't deal with it, you know. But the moment we go into resistance, we create suffering for ourselves. And the fastest way to go into resistance to anything is to support victim-oriented thinking, which is to blame something else or someone else or even yourself for what's gone down. And that you have to do that yourself. That's a choice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jyoti.
Okay.
The next question is from Frank.
Hello, Frank. I can't hear you, Frank. I don't know if you're talking to me or not.
Oh, I didn't have a question. Accident.
You didn't have it. I know who you are. You're Frank Go, aren't you?
Yeah.
How are you today, Frank?
Oh, yeah, I'm good.
Okay,
I don't know if I accidentally pressed something. I was just listening.
put your hand up accidentally, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Frank. That's right. See, Jody, just what is. Neither good nor bad, no right nor wrong, just what is.
The next question has been written by Brian. Do you find it helpful to relax our body? For instance, I often feel a contraction in my hara. So recently I've been working on putting my awareness there and relaxing into it.
Yeah, but you've got to remember that it began in your mind, not in your hara. See, if the mind's relaxed, the body will be relaxed. If the mind's not relaxed, the body won't be relaxed. So the work needs to be done in the mind. What is it in the mind that is not relaxed? That needs to be located, and that needs to be let go of. It comes back to the mind. Without the mind, the body would be limp. It's all in the mind. In treating the body, you're just treating a symptom. You're not treating the cause. Okay.
The next question is from a viewer. Do you recommend intense life energy or feeble life energy?
I have no idea what that means. Do you? Tosh is nodding his head like that. I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. If you want to reword it, I'll answer it, but I can't understand that question.
The next question has been written by Marcus.
Yep.
A self-development mentor taught me that my thoughts create my beliefs, beliefs create my habits, and those habits will become my life. Does this conflict with higher consciousness, since our effort here is to drop all of our beliefs and get out of our mind's dream?
Heck no, it's absolutely true. Your life coach was absolutely right. That's how we develop our default patterns. Absolutely. And we can change our default patterns accordingly. Same. No, on the money. Good one.
Next question has been written by a viewer. Vishrant, do you think you'll go back to India, and did Osho have children?
So that's two questions. Which question you want me to answer first?
Do you think you'll go back to India?
See, we can talk physically. I might go back to India, but I don't know. I'd like to, but I'm already in India. I'm also here in Perth, West Australia. To understand that one, you're going to have to wake up.
The next question was, did Osho have children?
I don't know. Osho and I weren't on talking terms. He was my master, and I did get to chat with him as a journalist, but he wasn't someone who allowed me into his house to have a cup of tea with him. That didn't happen. I don't know about his personal life as far as children. As far as I know, he didn't have any children, but he may have had children. On another level, though, all his disciples were his children. There were flowers in his garden.
The next question is from a viewer. Have you ever sat on a horse and did you enjoy it?
I have done a lot of horse riding. I did dressage and show jumping when I was a teenager. And I used to ride in the hunt in my early 20s with a little red jacket on, looking for foxes. Never ever saw one, but I did like charging through the bush flat out on a racehorse. Then I got put in charge of a horse about 10 years ago, or not that long ago, 8 years ago now. It was a neighbour's horse. Her name was Nadine, and the neighbour lived quite a long way away. It was on the horse was on a property that they weren't living on, and it was next to our property, and I was asked if I'd take care of this horse, feed it, give it water, and I did. And I loved that horse. And they told me that I should ride the horse, but I wouldn't ride the horse because I love horses. And I didn't want to put my weight on top of the horse. So I used to walk with the horse and talk with the horse and feed the horse and love the horse. But I wouldn't have ridden the horse. Those days were over. They were days when my consciousness levels were different. I love horses.
The next question has been written by Brian. My default pattern is egoic. Conditioning is in the foreground and awareness is in the background. Is there a point where awareness comes to the foreground and the grip of the ego drops to the background?
Yes, it's called enlightenment. Awareness is always aware of itself here, day and night, 24 hours a day. And in that appears every now and again the mind, but most of the time the mind stays quiet. The world appears in what I am, in what you are. Experiences come and they go, like clouds in the sky. But the same as the sky, we don't change. We're always here. Things get born, things live, things die. What we are is not born, cannot truly live. It exists. And it cannot die. And we are that. We have always been that. We are that now, whether it's realized or not. Everybody is at their final destination already. They just may not be aware of it, that's all. Because that's aware may not be aware of itself.
The next question has been written by Diane. Where does oneness come in reality? How do I see oneness?
Okay, so there's something aware of your mind, and when it becomes aware of itself, you realize that you are the universe, but it's not personal, that everybody is the universe, but it's not personal. You realize the oneness of everything because it's obvious, because it's seen, clearly seen. That can't be seen from the perspective of the ego. It's not possible because the ego sees itself as separate from everything, which is duality. But in awareness being aware of itself, there is no such thing as duality. There is non-duality. We are one. But that is seen and understood in Satori. You might be able to academically understand it, but it won't be the same. The direct knowing of self as beingness, we are one. We are one. We are one. Perfection upon perfection upon perfection. Thank you for Satsang. Good to see you brave hearts here today.